I will confess, I was not a D&D player. I mean, I knew about it, right? It's in popular culture everywhere, but I just never played the game. But this movie made me want to play the game. It made me excited for it and like actually wanted to like try to find a group around here, which I haven't yet. That's a whole nother story. But I think part of it is because you guys really captured what it feels like to have a game night with your best friends. So what is your secret? Like, how did you pull that off?
We just love things about game nights. It's just
Yeah, right.
special.
There's a real pattern with us. I mean, I think what is so unique about Dungeons and Dragons is also what makes it so fun, which is that sense of whimsy, that sense of humor. Our characters are very much relatable, and while they are in this sort of semi-medieval fantasy setting, they are contemporary in how they talk to each other and deal with the world, and that allows for this loose sort of storytelling where when they're interacting, they're having fun, and I think that kind of shines through and makes it feel unique. You feel like you're part of the group.
Yeah, I said that in my review. Like when I walked out of the theater, I was like, it feels like I'm watching a game being played, but also sitting at home with a game night with my friends. And I was like, it's really weird, but you'll get it when you watch the movie. Were you nervous at all about how D&D fans would respond to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's always pressure that goes with anything that's this beloved by so many people. We did Spider-Man Homecoming with Jeremy before this, and that carries with it a certain, similar pressure. But what we learned from that experience was you just have to believe in the movie you're making. And if you do it right and you embrace the material, and you have affection for it, that'll come across in the film you make, and the fans will follow. At least that's what we hope.
I have this saying that I always get made fun of for, but I'm like, if it's good, it'll be good. And it's like really stupid and not actually that illustrative, but it really is a truth as well. Like as long as we make it good, like people will like it, like as long as it's good, everything's gonna be okay. Like the main thing is to make something good, and it'll all be fine after that. And that's easier said than done in Hollywood. But I really do think that these guys were dedicated to making something good from the outset. And so I was never that worried about the fan reaction because I felt the movie was good and it worked for people. And if you see it, if you take the time to see the film, you'll have a good time. And that's kind of like the baseline of like, it's good. Okay, so we'll be okay because it's actually good.
Jeremy said that a lot on set. Sometimes we would be like, how are we going to make our day? How can we shave like $5 million off of the budget? He said, if it's good, it's good, which didn't really help in any way.
Not at all. No.
But it was a cool mantra.
That's amazing. Oh, you're not helpful, but thanks.
Yeah. But you're optimistic, so we'll take that.
Jeremy,
all the time.
One of our actors isn't available for this whole week where we need them. If it's good, it's good. Cool.
Yep. Great, Jeremy. Thank you.
I love that. All right, so the in-home release is going to feature all kinds of great stuff, including deleted scenes. Were there any that you had to cut that we're going to be able to see now that kind of made you the most bummed and that you're most excited for fans to watch now?
Well, there was an alternate ending thing that we loved in theory. It was basically, can I give it away? Does it matter? The one, we come back to the cemetery where one of our corpses was left alive, and he's still listing off his favorite books. And we shot 6 minutes of him listing off crazy D&D like book titles. And the credits would roll while he's doing that. That was one of our favorites. When we tried it, we started to realize, all right, it doesn't quite work, but it's very funny. And the fact that it goes on for 6 minutes, I think people will appreciate. There's a lot of Easter eggs in that.
Yeah, it's almost trolling the audience with that 6 minute clip. There was something that I don't know if it is actually in the deleted scenes, but I was bummed to cut it, was a line where Themberchaud's trying to fly up to the seesaw that our characters are running across to get away. And you get that big wide shot of it flapping its wings, but not really able to support its own weight. And we had Edgin say, he's like a chicken. And then when it gets hold of the seesaw and he starts sliding down toward its open maw, Edgin says, he's not like a chicken, which is so dumb and Scooby-Doo, but we knew it would have gotten a laugh, and we were told to cut it because we needed to be a little bit more serious in that moment. You know, that moment where they're being chased by a dragon.
Right. The other thing I missed probably most is in the early scene where Edgin and Hawk are outside chopping ice. We had that scene continued to where he's like, you ever wonder why they make us chop all this ice? And then he's like, I'm going to ask. And he asks the guard. The guard tells him to shut up. And to us, it felt like it really gave you the tone of the movie, but it did slow down the start.
Yeah. It is sort of akin to in Monty Python when the peasants are sort of stacking mud inexplicably, but it just looks like busy work. It's almost like having them say, why are we stacking all this mud anyway? What are we doing?
Yeah, I have a weird relationship with deleted scenes because I always feel like the deleted scenes themselves, like I always feel by the time I get to the end of the movie that we've made the best version of the film. And so they were all kind of cut mostly for a reason. I do miss the not like a chicken line, and I do miss the line that was in the trailer, figure it out over a drink. That was a bummer that we cut that. But by the time I get to the end of the movie, I always feel like, yeah, we cut the right scenes out, and I don't like looking at deleted scenes that much. But the thing I'm always nostalgic for are the sequences that got cut before they were scenes, that like got cut in development and like never quite made it to the screen for whatever reason. And one of those that I really miss that we never even storyboarded. I think the guys wrote one version of it. It was hilarious to me. It was just obviously going to be too expensive and silly to do. Was at the beginning of the film when they're stealing the horses, there used to be a turtle, which is like this like upright, large turtle man, like a turtle man, kind of like Jonathan the Birdman. And he was chasing after them, but he's slow like a turtle. And it was just this very cinematic, slow speed chase for horses. And it was incredibly dumb and really funny. And I was sad that never got shot. I wish we would have shot the turtle chase.
We could do a whole podcast on the things we would like to put in the movie, but couldn't.
Yeah, that's true.
Guys,
like that's
now I want to see a turtle man.
Yeah, the turtle man was awesome. Did we ever redraw him? I don't think so.
We didn't even get it drawn, but you can Google turtle.
He'll be in Teenage
awesome.
Ninja Turtles.
Got it.
What about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? We said it in the D&D world.
I'll Paramount.
Let me call him. Good idea.
I had the chance to ask Justice and Sophia this question before the movie came out, so I'm going to put it to you three. You're playing D&D. Who is your character? What are their powers? And if you're like Sophia, do they have some kind of insane, crazy backstory?
Let me think. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna play Edgin. I love him. I'm just playing Edgin. So I'll take that one off the table while these guys think.
Word for word.
I have no good answer for you. Word for word, Edgin.
Yeah. I would like to be Chancellor Anderton, just because he's the guy in the beginning in the Absolution Council. He's a bit portly, and he is very sort of pompous, and I feel like he has a good life back home. He's probably got a very comfortable setup. I don't know I guess he's just a human. I don't know what he is.
I would be Marleman, probably the halfling that Holga was married to. Seems like he's got a really good life. He's got it figured out.
All right, that's fair. Before I'm gone out of here, I just need to know, can we have another one of these movies, and how can we all work together to make that happen? Because I really love this one.
Thank you.
Very nice of you. Yeah, it's still too soon to say, honestly.
Yeah, it's not really up to us to decide, but certainly a lot of potential for other stories to tell and characters to explore and worlds to discover.
I think it's the sort of thing where I think this movie, especially once it's on home video and people are watching at home, I think it's going to be this thing that people just live with, that it'll be on while you're doing the laundry, because it's just like you want to hang out with the film. It's nice. You want to spend time with it. And so I'm excited for it to become kind of one of those movies that people just have on all the time in their lives. And if that happens, I think that it makes it really easy to have an argument for like wanting to make it up to one of these. I think it'd be really fun to dive in again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing about a second movie would be not having to convince people that it's going to be good and that it isn't terrible, because I think that was one of the challenges with the first Dungeons and Dragons film, just because of the title and I think the preconceptions that come with it.
One of the things that I loved about this film is how accessible it is to anybody, like not just D&D fans or people who play the game, but like the fact, like, so my podcast co-host, who you guys will chat with in a little bit, is actually a noob to the world of D&D. Like, this isn't her realm at all, and she loved the movie. So one of the things that we really loved is that fact that anybody can enjoy it. What was the decision behind that? Like, obviously it has to be accessible for everybody as a whole to be consumed, but it felt like there was so much thought into how that played out, right? Like, there's the eggs, there's the iconic monsters, but like,
Yeah.
the script as a whole just really brings that kind of game night feeling, in addition to the fact that like it's clear people who like the game worked on it.
Right. Well, I think it was exactly that. It required a lot of time and thinking in how we can depict this world in a way that doesn't alienate people that aren't familiar with it, but also feel true to the people that are. And I think ultimately it's all about the storytelling. And as long as you're telling a story that's relatable with characters that you can get behind, there's a way to introduce all of these new ideas without it overwhelming people that aren't necessarily in the know.
Were all of you fans of Dungeons and Dragons before you worked on this film? Any of you? All of you? Some of you?
I was an avid player for about 3 years before we started working on it. I played as a kid and then picked it back up as an adult and loved it. And it was that spirit, I think, of gameplay and constantly kind of pivoting and working on your toes that felt like a really great entry point to a way to tell this story. And that's kind of why, one of the reasons why we were so drawn to it, because it felt like a unique and fun way into a thing that you think you've seen before, but ultimately haven't really.
And I played as a kid, and the freedom of creating the game as you went along was so unique at that time. It's still kind of unique. And I remember just it inspiring me as a creative kid that there's this whole world that you could dive into. And when it came back our way in the form of a potential film, it really seemed like that opportunity to, take our sensibility of the kind of movies we had done before, but elevate it to a whole new level of sort of, scope.
And I had never played. I had not been allowed to play as a kid. I grew up in Oklahoma in the 80s, and you can imagine there was like a lot of discussion about D&D back then as being something that you didn't play with. But I also like natively just was not like which is weird based on my filmography, but I was not like natively like a nerd. Like, I didn't grow up with like comic books. I didn't grow up with D&D. I grew up playing Nintendo and like playing outdoors. And so it was weird to me to be doing a D&D movie, but in the same way that it was weird to be doing an Iron Man movie or Guardians movie or a Spider-Man movie. Like, I hadn't grown up with any of it. And it puts you in a different spot, which is like, you have to do the homework. You have to really be intentional and get into like figuring out what makes the fandom work and what makes the mechanics of the fandom like kind of go along and what makes them excited. But you also have this outsider perspective of like, I don't understand that. I need this to be explained to me in a way that I can grasp. And it's like that, like this new-eyed, open-eyed kind of experience that you come into it with that I think helps make the thing accessible, because I always was, very insistent in my Marvel days. And here, like, I don't understand that. I want to understand that better, or else, like, I don't know why that's in the movie. And it takes a lot of things that, like, are givens. Like, Tony Stark should be an alcoholic for sure, and he should only drink booze all the time. And you're like, I don't know if I like that. Can we make him like not an alcoholic all the time? And it's the same thing here. It's like,
Hey,
I don't understand that.
This is
I don't
whiskey.
get it.
This is whiskey and sunshine, Jeremy. Don't talk alcoholism.
Listen, I mean, it's not about alcoholism. It's about the things you enjoy in life.
Yeah, fair.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway,
But,
so I did bring an outside perspective to it a little bit, because I had not grown up natively with it. But it's an awesome world.
So for those of you that played, or then Jeremy, now that you are sort of, indoctrinated into this world of Dungeons and Dragons, if you, played in high school or college and, or play now, did you have a type of character class or race that you typically played, or do you have one that you would play now based on having brought this film to life and brought some of these characters and monsters to the big screen?
Well, as a kid, I think I traditionally was a fighter just because, like a 10-year-old, you just want to be strong and beat people up. That seemed cool. Now that having made the movie, I think Bard is probably more my speed because making movies is very much motivating large groups of people to do something seemingly impossible.
For me, I always played as a paladin, just because they have a lot of abilities. They're great fighters, but also have magic that they can wield. But I think now I would want to be a sorcerer, probably just because I loved Simon's character so much. And magic is such a fun skill to be able to play with in D&D.
Even if it doesn't solve everything.
That's right.
Got that. You got that.
I think I have to second Jonathan on the Bard thing. I think that it's just like naturally in our line of work in this crazy world of making movies that like you find yourself just trying to get by on charisma and begging people to do things and being excited and always wanting to tell a story. And I don't know, there's everything about Edgin is what I love. Like he's my guy.
I'm not a huge D&D fan, but I definitely played some in high school and college and spent probably far too many hours not studying and, doing nerdy things like that. But for sure, they're the iconic monsters that are in the film. And are there some of those monsters that were your favorites or maybe lesser favorites that you brought to the big screen in terms of like those practical sets and being able to implement them and how they just turned out? Like, do you have one that you just absolutely loved how it, turned out?
Yeah. This isn't necessarily a monster, but just the Dragonborn
Yeah.
was such an amazing feat by the geniuses over at Legacy Effects, because they implemented kind of old school prosthetic work with cutting edge technology like motion capture and being able to get the facial movements to look so convincing. And I think just the fact that they were able to do that and practice and get it so that it looked so incredible in such a short amount of time was really impressive to me. And that's why I have a soft spot in my heart for the dragon.
I would say, the owl bear really exceeded our expectations. We decided early on the development of it to give it a snowy owl look as opposed to the usual kind of grizzly bear approach. And it really kind of made it that much more beautiful of a thing. And then ILM just, it was ILM, right? I forget which ones.
Yeah,
ILM did such an amazing job with that one. It really felt like it was there with them. And then the lesser known one that I got a kick out of was the intellect devourers in the movie.
Yes.
Which we joke about is like a joke that cost $1 million, because it really you could lift it out of the movie and it doesn't really advance the plot, but it makes us laugh. So
Well, and for nerds, you're like, yes.
Right.
I continue to be obsessed with Thimbershad. From the first time I read the script, I thought he was so funny. It was a bit of a fight to get there with everybody because people were concerned that we were making, too silly of a dragon and it's not going to be menacing and all these questions that people had. And I just kept looking at the reference footage of this really overweight weenie dog that we had sent to NBC as reference. And it was just this little pudgy dog with its belly rubbing on the ground as it waddled along in a life jacket for some reason. I actually watched it yesterday again. I was talking to somebody and I pulled it up. And it's just so delightful. And I was like, I want that to be the centerpiece of a giant summer movie. This silly fat dog as a dragon. And it was just so fun to put that together. And I just love him. I love how chunky he is. I love how the internet has embraced the word chunky. I had not heard that word before. And it makes me delighted every time I read about it. And the fan art that people have done is so great for it that I know it's like connected with people on a large scale. So it's really fun. That's mine.
Easter eggs are one of my favorite things in films ever. Do you each have a favorite Easter egg that you guys were able to include in this film?
The little rust monsters were pretty cool. Baby rust monsters you see in one shot. That was a fun one.
I just the fact that all of the thorax, all of the writing in the film you could translate and it all makes sense, I think is really cool and allows for a lot of rewatchability because of it.
The painstaking effect we went to with the set decoration team to make all the coins the right shapes. Nobody wanted to make wanted to make anything but round coins because you can buy those en masse from, Amazon and stick them in places. And I was like, yes, but the coins in this world aren't round. They have these weird shapes and we have to make the right coins. And it was so silly that I don't think there's ever a close up of one. There's like a medium shot of them as they're falling out of the hot air balloon, but there's never really a close up of one. And that was a tremendous amount of work that went into those. That makes me delighted.
There were a lot of those coins stolen by our crew over the course.
There were none left by the end of the movie.
Well, now we all know what people kept for props. Thank you so much for your time. This was fun. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. It may end up being my favorite movie of the year. We will see. I mean, the year is still early, but I absolutely adored it. And I'm so glad that everybody can see it at home now. So thank you so much for your time.
It was great. Like I said, you converted me into somebody who wants to play now. So all the fingers crossed and whatever roll dice I got to, whatever I have to roll to make it happen. So thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.